If you would, brief intro, and let's get into the content. How is this affecting the workforce and breeding new entrepreneurs?
I'm Cheryl Goodman, and I'm the founder of FindGood.tech. And so a lot of what I do is really analyze what's happening in technology trends. Long career at Qualcomm and Sony and other electronics and software firms. And so I'm really looking at what's going to change. And I got to tell you, Felina, from a startup San Diego point of view, entrepreneurial view, I'm particularly excited about where we are in this point in time in history. And that is because of two things. And those two things is that we're in an economic downturn. And anytime there's an economic downturn, there is innovation out of pure need. It's different than the luxury innovations, right? Because you have to make it happen. And what we found, and the industry has proven, is that over time, as those entrepreneurial pursuits tend to be more sturdy and they last longer. And Uber is a case of that, as is Airbnb and many others from the housing crisis in around 2008 and 2007. Machine learning and AI has been a discussion for certainly at least a decade, but it really started in the 1960s. And so this has been something that many folks have been aware of, but it's really the first time the consuming public has had a direct interface to go, oh my goodness, automation can change my life. It can create efficiencies, and it can also cause some job disruption. So the net is, if you're an entrepreneur, you have the economic distress putting positive pressure on innovation, in addition to a arguably world phenomenon in terms of innovation capabilities to create new companies. Because of the economy, started to look a little different after November 2022, and that's when ChatGPT opened up. That's where companies could start to realize that they could have the same level of efficiency and, check this out, higher quality in some instances, and that is in marketing copy. And I think the big term, if I could, just wrap this around your head, because it was a big concept for me, it's the industrial revolution equivalent for knowledge workers. So if you're a knowledge worker, if you're an attorney, if you're if you're a doctor, a lot of this is evaluation of images and so forth. So anything that requires an immense domain expertise and a lot of memorization and reference material, these are the jobs that are seeing some changes and disruption.
We saw a lot of these tech companies do a lot of hiring kind of at the beginning, mid-range of the pandemic, right? And so you saw Facebook and Microsoft and Google all layer up in their, positions. And so part of this I'm hearing is just, we're kind of getting back to normal to some extent, right?
So there was massive hiring, which was really kind of interesting. But as we start to come back to work, facilities are coming more back online. And it's just a really interesting confluence of things that I don't think anyone could have predicted to hit just right so at that time. And it's created a very unpredictable market. And I would say, oftentimes you look back in order to look forward. In this case, we really don't have too many things where we're referencing a confluence of three different paradigms. So it is an environment, Felina, where I say it's good to be an entrepreneur, to take control of your own destiny, because if you hand it to another company, I don't even think sometimes they know what they're doing.
For sure. So let's give some folks advice. What is your advice to somebody who has found themselves caught up in these recent tech layoffs, whether it was due to AI or overhiring during the pandemic or whatever it was? What's your advice to them in starting a business instead of going to look for that next job?
Don't listen to the headlines so much. As a former news journalist, I was paid and they are paid to develop hooks to get you to read and to click, and they want your eyeballs, and you don't get it by telling the good news. And this is why I started my company, FindGood.tech. It really is, what is the good news? Well, I'm going to tell you what the good news is. The good news is we have an open education architecture system, especially for AI. Open AI actually has free courses to learn how to be a prompt engineer. It doesn't cost you a dime. Same thing with Google. Just 2 days ago, Google announced a series of courses from large language models to understanding ML. You are empowered as long as you have a connection and you are a person that's curious. And I would say that there's a lot of problems in this world. Figure out which one is yours to solve. And I believe that there's an opportunity to create revenue and also, find your purpose, if I could go so far as saying.
What else should somebody be thinking about in getting involved in AI as it relates to potentially building a business?
I like to sign up for all of the latest newsletters. There's one site in particular that I'm really fond of. It's called There's an AI for That. And they literally every day post and publish new business models for AI. So there's so much opportunity. And I was actually couple weeks ago in Silicon Valley. I was hired by TechForge to lead a 2-day conference on AI. And one of the speakers was an expert at Google. And he really gave some great advice, which was to think about things that are repeatable. Right. Those are the things that AI is going to solve for. Right. And think those things that are drudgery, the things that you are an expert at. And those are the things that are really going to serve under that automation, because basically what's happening is these large language models are training, as it were, the machine. And so all of that information can be put in such a rote way, and it can be used in many different ways. Companies are often challenged to be able to articulate a narrative that really brings the good forth in an authentic way. It really starts with messaging. So a lot of what I do is at the basics for companies is what do you stand for, and how are you proving that, and how do you measure that, and how do you say that, and how do you tell that? So at the end of the day, it operates like a PR firm, but it's far more strategic, because you don't get good press unless you figured out all of that in the back end. On the another thing that I do at FindGood.tech is I tend to do a lot of moderation of panels and event production. I focus really heavily on deep technology, blockchain, AI, cloud services, and anything having to do with what's new and needing to know in technology. It's something I'm absolutely passionate about.
Thank you so much for your time, Cheryl. It was a lot of fun having this conversation.
Yes, thank you, Felina.